Good evening. Welcome to this regular scheduled business meeting of the Summersville City Council on this 28th day of August 2023. I'd like to welcome our guests this evening and move right into tonight's agenda. The first item on the agenda would be consideration of the council minutes of the meeting we held on August 14th of 2023.
Move to approve.
Second.
Reading.
Okay, council, we got a first and a second. The motion was to waive the reading. Are there any changes or amendments to the minutes as they were presented in your packet? So speak, but forever hold your peace. Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion so carries. Jason, anybody other than anybody sign up to speak? No? Did you want to?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I just wanted to say, I appreciate y'all.
Okay, do me a favor. Come to this. And then the other thing that it's important that you do is that you state your name and then where you live, and we'll let you away with just the neighborhood.
Okay. But anyway, I'm Dave Mitchell. I live at 418 Ashley Lane right here in Summersville, Terra Estates. And I'd just like to thank y'all for last week and the last meeting to hear me out and everything. And I appreciate that very much. I have a lot of respect for y'all. I didn't take any of it personal. I still won't, no matter what the decision is. But I just want to say thanks. Bunch of fine gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I would say back at you too. You know, bringing a concern to us like you have. Even in speaking with Joey and Gary, you've been nothing but professional, sir, and we appreciate that. So,
Thank you.
and I think it all works better when we all treat each other the way we want to be treated. So, thank you for your professionalism as well. Okay, no other public comment. Did you all sign up, by the way?
Yes.
Okay, good deal. Okay. Okay, no other public comment. The first item on the agenda tonight is the Historical Society update and request. And council, at this time I'd like to introduce Joe Strickland, who is the president of the Historical Society. I've spent just a little bit of time with Joe and his story. And after having a conversation with him, it was decided that the best thing to do is get his story out. So tonight he's going to come with an update on the Historical Society along with the request at the end. So Mr. Strickland, welcome to City Council, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I appreciate you coming down and looking at the property with me and listening me out. And I'd like to thank Jason Eads back here for helping me get my presentation together. I've given you a copy of it. It's a busy presentation, so I intend to go through to minimize the amount of time and questions at the end. My objective is to just go across some history and try to create some dialogue either at the city level, the county level, or with individuals for the survival of the Historical Society. So that's my objective. Our current officers are, I'm Joseph R. Strickland. I'm the president. Our vice president is Gary Wilcox. Secretary is Bert Gross, and the treasurer is Mary Lamb. We're a 501(c) organization formed in 1982, some 41 years ago today. But to put where we are in perspective today, I put a little history together. On the left of each one of these slides is a historical document from which I've extracted a part of it from. This is the certification from the Secretary of State. At that time it was Mr. Manchin, who happens to be the current senator's uncle. We were formed in 1982, and I've highlighted what I consider on this slide to be critical. The incorporators were names we all know, Bonita Bell and Stanley Atkins. The initial board of directors included Bonita Bell, Jim Comstock, who at that time was the publisher of the News Leader and the Hillbilly in Richwood. So this was a countywide organization, and Mr. Rice, who lived down at Cross Lane. Our association is genealogical. It's nonprofit. We're open to individuals interested in history, especially the history of Nicholas County. We're dedicated to collection and preservation of materials, artifacts that illustrate the history of our area and ensure the access to such materials and to the preservation of our historic landmarks. and I've highlighted the historic landmarks. The next slide will explain about that. The work of the society is carried out by volunteers and is supported by memberships, dues, and contribution. The next slide indicates the formation of the Nicholas County Historic Landmark Commission, which was formed in 1984. On the left is the document from the county. Excuse me, thank you,
There you go.
thank you. Keep me on.
You're doing good, Jeff.
Anyway, County Commission in 1984 agreed to form the Nicholas County Historical Landmark Commission, and our Historical Society was put as a member of that commission and still is a member. So that organization now is under the county's umbrella. Our organization, we don't have an umbrella. We have to provide our own insurance, everything. So that's the difference between the two. The first document, the next document is the one-room schoolhouse, which is currently located at the Nicholas County Veterans Memorial Park. It's a school from the old days, back when there were no lights, no running water, no school buses, and no school lunch. It served as the Irish Corner Schoolhouse from 1915 to 1954. It was moved to the Memorial Park restored by volunteers from the Historical Society, the Nicholas County Association of Retired Teachers, and it is currently owned by the Nicholas County Veterans Memorial Park, originally owned by the association. So over the years, somewhere responsibility, if you're on my property, it becomes my property. So I've decided I wouldn't fight that since they're going to take care of it. And we have a user's fee, we get access to it. So it's available to the public and continues today. The next one is the Historical Society, is the Hamilton House, which Mayor Schaefer toured with me. It's an 1893 farmhouse located down 39, just south of town here. And it was built in 1893 when Summersville had the grand total of 200 inhabitants. So it was occupied by the Hamiltons in 1984. And now this one and we dedicated in 1988. It's since served as our headquarters and museum for collections and furnishings for the life of the average Nicholas County family at the turn of the 19th century. The next one is the Richwood Historic District, which was also formed as part of this organization. And there are 13 historic locations in Nicholas County. The Hamilton House is one. This is one. There's another location in Lockwood and other houses scattered around the county and buildings. The next organization that came along was the Old Main Foundation, and it came along in 1990, and it was organized as a 501(c) as well. And sometimes those two all these organizations have been in conflict with each other, so today we're back in more of a cooperative mood and trying to move the total effort forward. The organization was promoted to maintain and the purpose to have educational heritage, preservation, and the arts. And it was incorporated by Wilma Richardson, who was a prominent citizen who got a lot of historical stuff started. She retired, moved back here. Most of the people in these organizations had a lot of them moved off, earned their livings, moved back, and that sort of thing. So that is where we're at today. We're at the Hamilton House today. This house is down 39, and this is the current condition of the house. The little sign in the bottom left corner is out on the road. The house is, the next one gives you location just outside the city limits. And the item on the right is the plat, which was attached to the deed. The current owners, heirs have an access road through there. They also, I think, have a access for an easement for a drain field on the sewer system. So the house was restored primarily. Wayne Accord was one of the major people who helped restore the house in that period. If you walk around the house, it's badly deteriorated. And so I've just walked around the house here, and the mayor went with me, and you can see there's a lot of repairs that need to be done to maintain it as a historical place. And that takes a lot of money. It's not going down and put plastic siding on it. So you have to maintain it as it was in 1893 to maintain its register. You go inside, and the first 3 or 4 rooms are artifacts. These are items such as that refrigerator there, ice box, that's Wayne Accords. The stove back there belongs to somebody else. So people donated all of these things. They're in there, and if you can get in the house, that's what you get to look at. To me, the most important part of the collection is the documents that are inside the house. They're historic documents. I call them an archive. It's books, histories. There's cabinets full of family histories, those things that people have developed and put in there over time. So, to me, that's the preservation that needs to be done. Now, my experience is, I'm a retired industrial forester, and I can tell you it's a lot harder to shut something down or change it than it is to start. So it's hard to come in and tell your employees, I'm going to cut the 3rd shift, okay? Or they decided somewhere else they're going to shut you down. So my objective is, I was advised not to take the job as president by some prominent people in town, but I decided my job was to try to make it survive. So that's what I'm here to discuss with you, is how we can, as an organization and community, make it survive. This is sort of how it is today. These are the issues. It's not handicap accessible. We don't have heating, air conditioning, and ventilation. We can't afford it. It's not fireproof. There's no fire protection. There's no dehumidifier to keep the documents and the artifacts in a good condition. The room is not big enough for regular meetings. Can't afford to maintain the exterior of the house as a historic place. There's no water or toilet. We can't afford it. Limited accessible parking. The Historic Document Archive is not indexed for searching and are making available for online searches, and we don't have any high-speed internet. And the other thing of it is, I've been up to the city library, and the ladies up there brought these boxes out. People bring this historic stuff into the library, our library here. We don't have a way to catalog and use it and make it available to the public. Because a lot of people who want access to these documents want weekends. They come in for family reunions or something else. The lady last week came from North Carolina. She's from Richwood. She was looking for her history. But if I don't have this stuff organized, it's sort of like, you know, where do you start? So it requires professional people to put this thing together to make it useful. Now the other thing at the bottom is there is a deed condition that is critical to the survival of the organization. This is the legal document at the top, the deed that's recorded in the courthouse, and the current heirs family that's the prominent one is the Mearns, and they are the grantees, and the Nicholas County Historical Society is the grantee. Now there's a condition in there in that top box, the one that says, should the grantee dissolve or otherwise cease to exist as an organization in corporate form or not, then the property herein conveyed shall revert to the grantors, their heirs, successors, and assignees. So I can't leave the house until I dissolve the property. Well, after Mr. Mayor and I visited, I stopped by the caretaker's house and had a long discussion. And that night, I had a nice phone call from the heir. She's in California. She's a environmental engineer, has a big business out there. And so it was a very pleasant discussion with her about what we were needed to do, and she said I could agree that I could share it with the city council. So she's very receptive, and she's coming in October, and we'll have meetings with her. She would like for us to get an attorney, which we can find a way for them to take the house back, and we retain our society. So she wants the house back. She wants to restore it and maintain it as a historical place that's with the National Park Service that was listed in 1999. So that part, I think, the survival issue we can solve, which to me has in the past been a major issue. Because if you dissolve, you have to give a lot of these donations and these artifacts back, and it may be hard to find Aunt Bertha, who is long gone, and we don't know where she is. So that was, to me, was a major step forward. So we're like any organization, we have needs and wants. We need a handicapped accessible facility. We need heating, air conditioning, ventilation, fireproof, fire protection, dehumidifier for the documents and the artifacts, facility with room big enough for regular meetings, low cost or no cost maintenance, potable water, toilets, easy accessible parking, and it's like the rest of the city, parking is a very premium thing here as well as throughout the city. We need high-speed internet. The artifacts need to be somewhere we can display them and make them available to the public. The historical documents the archives need to be scanned and indexed for searching and making available for e-commerce. I've talked to some organizations that feel strongly that get it online and people will pay to get a copy of their family histories. So and then have a place to store these documents and make them display. And finally, an excellent website developed and indexed and maintained by us. So as most things is, we have facility needs, monetary needs, volunteers and staff. And the last thing, I want to thank you all on the City Council and for all your time and your attention. Thank you.
Okay. Let's see if we have any questions, Joe. Questions?
Joe, I want to say thank you for presenting this evening. It's an excellent presentation.
Well, thank you.
I'm sure it enlightened us quite a bit, I know.
Well, I think the history needs to be there for people to understand. It's like,
I agree wholeheartedly.
so it's like this year's the 52nd Potato Festival. Well, if you don't know the history, you don't know how you got here. And my experience is if you don't have your history, you become just a number. And so, to me, history is important, not only for now, but the future, and your kids and all our kids will appreciate it. So, all of these people did a lot of work to collect all this up, and my objective is to find a way to preserve it, move it into the future, and make it where it can stand by itself, because you can't find the volunteers that came home after the service who had been through World War II, who had been people, their parents had been through the Depression. They knew their actions or inactions had consequences, so that's why they took these actions. So that's.
So Joe, let's be clear. Let's put a clear message out, exactly what you're looking for. And of course, anybody would be able to draw the conclusions that you have, and I quickly could on my visit, that you need a new home.
Need a new home.
So this is a call to the Nicholas County community that the Historical Society is looking for a new home because many reasons. Most is probably, the revenue, the financial piece to be able to maintain the property. It's not realistic. But, the thing that's really scary is, as you well stated, your document room that's got your archives in it, And what would be really, really sad is for this county to lose. And more important than anything is the fact that there's no fire protection down there. And then, of course, right now, the only thing that's happening down there is they've just got electricity on.
That's right.
Anyway, then, so it's, you know, you're looking for a new home, so if anybody's got any ideas here in Nicholas County, I encourage you to reach out to Joe Strickland. And Joe, can we put your contact information in the newspaper? Because what would be good is to give Ray one of your cards so that
I've given him the presentation.
Okay, good. And so you need a new home, obviously finances, but you're also wanting to maybe kind of do that through membership, you know.
Yeah, membership is very minimal.
Yeah, you don't.
And you got life members, some of them are probably not around anymore, so at one time in 1995, there were 200, we're down to probably less than 100, okay?
Yeah.
And a meeting has 3 folks.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's,
So members are needed bad. It's real affordable. It's very inexpensive to become a member, even a life member. But more importantly, you need that network of people to help you accomplish the missions that are laid before you in your current situation.
and Mayor, that the Upshur County Historical Society has a building downtown across from the courthouse where they do documents and that sort of thing, and they publish newsletters and those sort of things. So there is an example out there that I would personally will go check on and report back to you because to see what they have. So there's other people that are doing that.
Yeah.
So,
And it was-
the key is something that can be has its own life and can work on weekends and others and make it accessible. So,
And then finally, if anybody so has it in their heart to make sure that this effort of the archives of the history of this county, that it's preserved, if anybody has it in their heart, as a society, you'll definitely take a donation.
all right. Yes,
So, okay.
Thank
All
you
right.
very much.
Joe, excellent, thank you.
Mayor, can I,
Yes,
Joe,
Oh, excuse me.
this is kind of personal interest thing here.
Yeah.
Could you describe or tell us briefly about your family history in the county?
Sumner County?
Somersville.
Well, my dad was a doctor here. Dr. Leonard Strickland was here probably somewhere in the mid-40s till he passed away in '67. And it turned out that he graduated from Nicholas County High School 100 years ago this year. Now, he rode a horse from over on Wilson Ridge and came over here and then stayed at the Craig House and got his high school degree and that sort of thing. Practiced military, World War II, practiced that. I have a brother. I grew up on Hill Street down here. And my brother's a retired doctor in Charleston. I'm an industrial forester. I've been all over the South. The last 36 years I spent in Dallas, Texas. And you say, what is a forester doing in Dallas, Texas? Because it's 300 miles to the closest tree. I was there because we had to have an airport. Any morning I was in a support group, strategic planning for the organization. Any morning you might have to say, well, you need to be in Portland, Oregon. Next morning you need to be in Portland, Maine. You need to be in Singapore, Helsinki, wherever you want. So, there's no trees, but it was a good airport. So, but then my wife and I, both are from here. So we left in '56, moved back 60 years later in 2016. And we came back because I lived in Dallas and the LBJ freeway just got double decked. And about a mile away from him, there was 21 lanes of traffic. So I decided I better move home before my son wheeled me in a wheelchair and said, guess where you are, Dad? So does that help you, Mr. Epping?
Except I think you didn't say anything about your mother.
My mother was a high school teacher here and taught math here at Old Main from 1948 to 1972.
An excellent teacher. She was one of my teachers.
Thank you, sir.
And I went to your dad. Your dad's office was on the Camden property down here on the corner. Right here.
My dad's first office was over in the Stowers grocery store.
Okay.
And I always remember those little ladies in the 3-inch heels would climb those straight upstairs. And, I said, what are you up here for, go to the doctor? And then my dad had his, as you say, had his office at Camden. Right.
Yeah.
All right, thank you for.
I grew up on Oak Street.
Okay,
You guys were little, and his brother's name is Sam.
right.
He was quite a professional down in Charleston for a
Yes, he
lot of
was.
years.
He ran the
Eye
clinic
clinic.
on the boulevard for years, right.
Yeah.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joe.
Yes.
Okay, moving right along. The next item on the agenda is the second reading and addendum to the ordinance pertaining to compensation for elected officials. That doesn't actually change the compensation, but what it does do is it declares how you can be compensated. So this ordinance was read into the books at the last meeting. I'll entertain a motion for the second reading.
Second.
We have a first and a second. Is there any questions or discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion so carries. The next item on the agenda is the second reading of the revised Article 505 Animal and Fowl Ordinance. Again, at the last meeting, this ordinance was read into the minutes. So therefore, unless requested, we won't read it again, but it highlights, as the city recorder did last week, that it puts some controls on things and brings clarity to this ordinance as it was previously written. So I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
We have a first and a second. Is there any questions or discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion so carries. Okay, the next item on the agenda is the chicken permit approval. And at this point in time, it's 418 Ashley Lane, and I'll turn it over to Reporter Gary Whitney.
Thank you, Mayor. If you could pass those down that way, to them, do one of each there. Okay, gentlemen, what we have here is Mr. Mitchell did exactly what he was asked to do. And he came in right into the city office right after the last meeting that we had and gave us everything that he was supposed to give us in regard to this ordinance. And I want to go ahead and read this ordinance because I think it's important to have clarity and to make sure that this council understands everything that took place. This 505.04 permit required to keep animals and fowl nuisances. No live poultry, fowl, or animal of any kind, except dogs and cats, shall be kept in the city without the owner thereof having received a permit, so to do from the city recorder and approval of council. No charge will be made for such permit, but it will only be granted upon agreement that the stable, barn, coop, or other place where such animal, poultry, or fowl is to be kept shall be constructed in such a manner that it can be kept and maintained in a dry, clean, and sanitary condition, free from offensive odors. So I'm going to stop as I read this just to let you know. I did go out and visit Mr. and Mrs. Mitchell. It was a great visit. He did tour me around his property, and I want you to know that I found all of this in very good working order. I didn't find any issues at this point. Applications for such permit shall be accompanied by a certificate signed by a majority of the householders residing within a radius of 500 feet from the place where such a stable, barn, coop, etc. is proposed to be located, provided that no farm, stable, coop, or other place where any animal, fowl, or poultry is kept or is to be kept shall be built, used, or maintained within 50 feet of any house inhabited by human beings, and unless built and maintained in a clean, dry, and sanitary condition and free of offensive odors, and provided further that none of the above enumerated poultry, fowl, or animal shall be allowed to run at large, but shall be housed in a suitable enclosure, which shall be kept thoroughly clean and unobjectable at all times. That's a lot of words. But I do want everybody to know that it certainly qualifies. There is nothing within the 50 feet of his coop. So there's nobody living inside that 50 feet. Upon the failure of any owner or occupant of any premises to comply with any of the provisions of this section, such barn, stable, coop, etc., shall be deemed a nuisance, and as such shall be removed or abated as provided by law. So I think it's important that Mr. Mitchell did a very good job. He came to me with everything that he needed to come to me with. I've provided you on the second page there of the 23 names or signatures that he received with the addresses. I think you'll see those there. The next page is certainly my summary of all of this. Mr. Mitchell presented a total of 23 signatures from 21 households. Out of the 23 signatures, 2 were from addresses that had already had a signature. This would take the number of qualifying households to 21. Once we add Mr. Mitchell, there are 22 names on the list. Out of the 22 households presented, 7 were located outside the 500-foot range. I can tell you, everybody, that this is not an easy task. I know Dave, had to get on Google Maps, and he got the little barometer there or whatever to try to find out which ones, but it's certainly amazing how many households. When I think of 500 feet, I figured there would be like 10 or 12, so I was blown away by the amount of homes here that was involved in that. So he did a nice job, but I did want to point out that out of the 22 households presented, 7 were located outside the 500-foot range. This left 15 households on the list that qualify inside the 500 feet. Okay, certainly I went through and dug out the Google map and started working on it myself, dug into some help, and I do want to give kudos out to our IT. Jason over there, he did a really good job and knows a few more tricks than I do. But we use GPS mapping. Is that correct, Jason? GIS mapping, I'm sorry. GIS mapping to determine the households that fell within the 500 feet. The mapping application located 22 households and 1 commercial plaza owned by Regency Properties, bringing the total to 23 properties. When you look at that GIS mapping, it actually lists all those businesses as an address, but truly that Merchants Walk is one big building owned by Regency. Okay, so it's 23 properties. Mr. Mitchell's list of 15 fell in the range of majority, which is what the ordinance was calling for. So I want everybody to know that it certainly fit inside the ordinance here. And as the ordinance is written, once this is, given up and given to the recorder's office, then we can take this to the council for their vote on the issue. Does anybody have any questions?
How many of them, all of them in that 500 feet, how many are not signed up? How many houses were there?
I couldn't tell you off the top of my head.
Well,
Well,
what he's saying is there's 23, Gene.
Right.
50, he got signatures. Out of 23, he's got 15 signatures. So he got 65% of the signatures within the 500 feet, which it calls for the majority, so that would be, 51% would be the majority.
Yeah. So there were 8 that did not sign up or get signatures.
So what do you want us to do?
I believe it's his wish that we come to a vote that are we going to allow chickens at 418 Terrace Estates? 418, correct?
Who calls for that? Are you asking for a motion?
Yes.
I move.
Okay.
Second.
So the motion is,
Is your motion to approve the chicken?
Yeah.
Yep.
If it's like this,
Well,
yeah.
So we got a first and a second. Chuck was first, Wayne is second. The motion is to approve the chicken coop at 418, Ashley Lane, I was gonna say, so yeah, Ashley Lane. Okay, so now we're open for discussion.
Mayor, my only question is, now this coop and everything, does it have to be checked by code official quite often? And if it would happen to be anything wrong, it get shut down? Or once you have a permit, you're permitted to have them, or how does that work?
Yeah, he would, honestly, I don't know that we'll go out there, I don't have, I mean, but he's in the neighborhood, but yeah, he would have to conform to, what he's being authorized to do here and.
Well, it says right here, upon failure of any owner or occupant
Yeah,
to comply, then you provide by law, you shut them down.
yeah.
Okay.
Okay, other discussion?
I just want to be clear what's going on here, because, sorry, I'm a little confused with what we amended on 50504 earlier.
Yeah, so.
Now we're talking,
Yeah, so basically what this is this is an application that predates the ordinance.
right.
And so technically, if you all choose to approve this tonight, there will not be another bird like this in the city because the ordinance you just passed will not permit it.
Understood.
There's nothing behind my house, there's a plaza down below. So everything that we got is a half moon from up the other way. I did make 3 trips, so if there's missing some signatures on there, they either weren't home, there's a house that's up for sale now, or that's something like that. So I would have made 4 or 5 trips if I had to, but I did make 3 trips around.
Mr. Mitchell, you did everything that we asked, and thank you for that. We've had some other issues in town with this that people just haven't done what you've done. My concerns are still my concerns. I've had a couple people I've had a couple neighbors in our neighborhood that have brought it to my attention. One is the predator issue that could arise. We have some issues in town with that already. I did receive another phone call regarding property value. That is a concern as well. I feel that I need to let you know that I will have been approached by folks and just a handful of folks that have expressed their concern after watching it on our SCTV. So just so you're aware of that too, those are some of my concerns as well
Can you do me a favor, and I apologize?
No.
I lost some of my hearing, and
No, that's
hearing
okay.
aids sometimes don't involve.
No. What I was stating was just some of my concerns. I personally had some of our residents that live in our neighborhood bring it to my attention, the same things that I mentioned last time, which were predator issues. I have a couple people, concerned because we have not approved chickens in the city limits since I've been on here, and I can't really remember any before, but that is some of their issue as well as for property value.
Since you've been on the council, how
Yes.
many people have filed for permits that you had to?
I have not had any. That's why I said, I think this is good. You did everything that you're supposed to do.
So you're the first.
My point is I did it the right way.
You most certainly did.
Absolutely.
You most certainly did.
How long have you had the chickens at that?
6 months.
Now, have you had any issues with any predators at all in that 6 months?
No, we had enough beef, we actually raised them in the house.
I have, my little girl has 20 chickens out in the country at her mom's, and I see it both ways, because part of it is like Stevie told me, she has problems constantly with coyotes, foxes, raccoons, everything. I mean, she's lost several chickens at her coop. I have cousins out of town that have them, same thing, they deal with it all the time. But I also appreciate how well he maintains his coop, and
100%.
Would you folks mind if I just kind of like moved up here a little bit?
Yeah,
Sure, come on.
Yeah, sure. Okay, any other discussion?
I think we talked about this last time maybe, but Are there, you currently have a restriction in your deed?
Well, no, when I was brought up last time, it
I
was
know,
said that that's a civil matter and so forth.
it is.
Now, the HOA no longer exists. And so basically, when I use the term basically, they're not there. That's without going back and doing the full records check. And I quit going through the record after. It's a civil issue or,
Okay. Let me say this, you know, of course I'm on planning and zoning, I guess I've got a little more interest in this than some people, but, you know, the zoning aspect and property value thing. But you know, the people that bought properties in that development were all thought that there were deed restrictions in place, and that's how they, one of the reasons why they bought the property.
not exactly, because I didn't look at my deed restrictions.
Well,
I bought my house because it was a nice house. But I want to make one comment on that, as far as being a reduction to the property value, and I apologize for the way this might come out, but have you ever driven into Summersville?
Oh, yeah.
Have you ever looked at the houses as you're coming in, with moss growing on the roofs,
Sure.
siding missing?
Sure.
Drive through my neighborhood.
My point is that it is a development that was organized with certain restrictions.
My point is, you took them away at the last meeting.
What did we take?
You said that there
No,
was.
so let me be clear what I said. We are not, the city of Summersville, under no circumstances do we enforce deeds. That's not a part of our code official and our governing of our city.
Gotcha.
And we've traveled this road before, and that is strictly a civil deal. If you're doing something on your property that is deed restricted, then somebody has to, the authority to straighten that out is not city council, it's circuit court. And so that's what I was saying. So, and even what you mentioned, you said you'd talked to an attorney and they'd given you advice that those were null and void. We don't even, and Jim's using it as a reference as people, but we are not the authority on whether they're there or not. So I just want to be clear. I'm not saying they're not there. I'm just saying that that's not a road for us to travel, because that's across the street here down at the courthouse if somebody wants to make civil action because they think you're going against your deed. It won't be this body that would hear that and or deal with it.
I totally understood
okay,
that. I just want to make sure that.
Yeah, but don't make the statement, and again, I know you just said it, but I don't want to ever make it that I did away
No, sir.
with deed restrictions, because I did not. I just
No,
said that
sir.
this isn't
I
the well.
apologize.
No, you're good.
But also the complaint was not about the chickens. Somebody heard a rooster crowing. I don't have roosters. And if I do, man, they're invisible, or one of those hens that really don't thing I don't know about. So. And I apologize, sir, I wasn't trying to be argumentative.
Well, I'm just trying to get my head around this development and then our responsibility. I mean, if there's no HOA in place, and, and that does not limit what you do up there, then do we have some responsibility as a council to look after people in that development?
Well, I think you look after them as constituents, Jim, if they don't. But I'm going to tell you, come to my neighborhood and break out our deeds, and then drive around. There's all kinds of violations in my neighborhood that are deed restricted things that people can't do that they're doing. And so again, I think that from the standpoint of sending any kind of a signal that the city of Summersville is now going to start enforcing or looking at as a part of our decision making deed restrictions, I just think that that's a can of worms that there's no way, shape, or form we can open up. But that still does not mean that we don't listen to our constituents that live in these neighborhoods. Some of them may know about them and be concerned about them, or just some of them may not want the activity at all for whatever reason. It doesn't have anything to do with their deed. I think that we still have a due diligence to listen to our constituency, of which you are one. But yeah, the deep thing.
That's my point.
Yeah.
I don't think we ought to get in the
Right.
business of trying to enforce these restrictions.
Yeah, right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But that's what I say when I come in, I have a lot of respect for y'all because I used to work for a couple cities and I do have a lot of respect for what you're doing and what you're totally take care of everybody very well. Also, and I'll point this out, to be honest with you, I only ran into one person who said they wouldn't sign. And she just don't like chickens.
Okay.
Unless they're at Kenny King's, you know?
I don't think I'd be happy regardless.
Yeah, that's exactly
Yeah.
right. Whatever we do is not gonna make everybody happy.
Right.
I
Yeah.
apologize.
I say whatever we do is not gonna make everybody happy, because the next person comes along and wants to do chickens, we say, no, but Dave did it up and we say, well, he got in under the deadline, so that's the way that is. So one person's happy, one, you know, it's that kind of thing. So we're not gonna please everybody by doing this kind of stuff, you know.
You're not gonna please everybody no matter what you do,
That's true.
Right.
That's
for
right.
any situation.
That's true.
But planning and zoning, we've certainly spent a lot of hours on this subject and tried to put all the comments that we were receiving in that new ordinance. Again, these are ordinances that are somewhat confusing. I felt like the intent of that ordinance was no vow, and it was. And then they followed it back up with giving you an opportunity to have vow. So it's a little bit confusing in that regard, so.
Okay, any new comments, or can I call for the question? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Okay. Opposed, same sign?
Aye.
Okay. So let the record reflect that everybody's for it with the exception of Stevie and Gary. Okay, sir. Congratulations, you get to keep your
Thank you,
chickens.
Austin. I really appreciate it. Hopefully to see you at the fair next year. We're gonna put little granddaughter in with 3 of our chickens.
Okay. Mr. Mitchell, again, thank you for your professionalism and even you preferencing today's meeting that,
Thank you, sir.
you know, regardless of the outcome.
Thank you, sir.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much. Hopefully I get to see y'all again on different bases.
Thank you, Ben.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Just make
don't
sure
come
that-
back with another issue.
Just make sure we don't have any.
This is too hard on us. This is too hard on us.
I've
Just-
learned so much that I know that I have to get permission to get my house painted certified. Well, someone told me that, and I learned a lot more tonight. Well, I appreciate y'all
Nothing
very
I know
much.
about that. All right, thank you all. Have a good evening. Okay, moving right along, the next item on the agenda would be City of Summersville Recreational Complex Update. Hey, let me give you all an update on the recreational complex. I'm starting to get a little bit excited, pumped up. We've got some activity, some real activity moving now. So I want to tell you where we're headed. Of course, this year we have just south of $600,000 in the budget that has already previously been budgeted, or it's in the budget from the first round for the complex. So last week, Michael Young and myself attended a trails meeting, the Pioneer Trails. As a matter of fact, we hosted it here in Summersville. We brought in a whole region of folks because in the financial aspect of moving forward with these trails, it comes down to partnerships and connectivity. And so that's exactly what we're looking to do. I was much pleased to get to the meeting, and Michael's been on a little mission for some time since he took the chairmanship of the committee. It was really exciting to show up at the meeting and see some of these folks already knew our chairman of our trails, Michael Young, because he's been out working the network. And so as far as recognition, they already knew who Michael was and the project and undertaking of a task that he had. So we're moving forward, and what are we going to do moving forward? So ideally, it is my goal to try to do the groundbreaking for the park in October. I'm going to say mid to late October. In doing so, the first two pieces we're going to take off with, we actually have a meeting It's going to be myself, Michael, and we're bringing in some trails people and some regional people and some financial people. It'll be the last meeting that Michael and I have, and then from then on, he'll get with his committee and they will take off and do the design, work with the designers, get the designer hired. Our engineer, Thrasher, who was hired for the project, they are not trail design folks, so we're going to actually reach out and hire some trail design folks, but I will leave all of that to the committee because that's exactly why we put these committees together. From the standpoint of the meeting that we had and the meeting that we're going to have, it's all logistical. It's working out the logistics and the financial. And as soon as we get those pieces off, then I'm going to give Michael a green light for his committee and away they're going to go. Ideally, what I would really like to have done is when we do the groundbreaking, I would like there to be flags all over that property that resemble where the trail system's going to be. I think that would be a real odd visual. The next thing I'm going to do as soon as we get this piece handled, then I'm going to reach out to Jeremy Bandy, who is our chairman for our soccer, and we're going to give them a green light to move forward with the design work of the soccer complex. And then again, you know, in phase one, which is the trails and the soccer complex, we're gonna see some hopefully real movement on the first part of that, which is the trails. I'm trying to finish up the details to bring the National Guard in. Actually, I'm waiting on some more information from them in connectivity, and then I'm also waiting on some information from our engineer, as we're going to hire our engineer to supervise the National Guard. Both parties like that idea. Number one, ironically, when I reached out to the National Guard and Major Pulling to start with, he said he thought that was a wonderful idea because he said, we have combat engineers. We build roads and bridges. And so he said that would be excellent. And actually when I talked to Thrasher about bringing them in, they said, you know, they work hard, they try hard, but sometimes if you get somebody in there to do you some good work, volunteer work, that's no cost and training, and in the long run, it can, you know, if they don't take it in the right direction, you could end up, you know, costing yourself more work and more money if you got to come in and reduce. So we're going to get a contract from Thrasher, and they will manage every aspect of and have a manager on site when the National Guard works. And you got to remember that they're for the most part they come in on weekends, and then maybe we can catch them for some week training that they'll move that equipment in and start moving some dirt. Ideally, what we're going to have them work on, we've talked about it and had discussion, and this is with the engineer. We're going to go ahead and cut the main road into the park. And so that'll be exciting. Now, that will not happen, absolutely will not happen prior to the groundbreaking in October, because what we're not going to do is spend a fortune graveling roads if we get in there and dirt everything up. So the earth movement stuff will come after the groundbreaking, and we're looking at doing that in October. So it very well could be yet that maybe they'll get in before the end of the year, but definitely we'll look at some serious movement in 2024, the beginning of 2024. So stand by. You know, it's really, and I mean, it is super exciting that this is going to take place. I know everybody's been waiting. I think what we'll do is we'll have the groundbreaking. It'll be ceremonial. Get the right people out there. Get all the committees out there. Get the community out there. And remember, I think the important piece about this whole park is we, the leadership in government, are not building the park, the people are. We're going to turn it over to these committees, and that's where the nuts and bolts are going to be done, the work's going to be done, utilizing their talents, and we've got some wonderful people, both men and women, and youth on these committees that are going to help design this park. And of course, we're going to settle for nothing than the best. I promise that. From the financial standpoint, we still plug away. Just recently received another letter from the USDA where we were declined on another application, which is fine because, you know, you just keep hitting at it. Eventually you're going to get a hit. I'm looking forward to that hit. But in the meantime, I'm also preparing the city. I've done some financial work, and I hope to, at the beginning of 2024, after we've got more realization as to what the sales tax revenue is going to do for the city of Summersville, we identified that revenue to be utilized, some of it on the Parks and Rec So we're gonna go ahead and probably market and do some bonding in the year 2024 to bring some real dollars to the park and make movement and get something going. The other thing I will tell you too, that in the last carry forward of the budget, I'm gonna add, believe it or not, the first real piece of anything that we're gonna buy for the park, and I'm gonna recommend that we buy a pickup truck that we'll go ahead and label Summersville Sports Complex. Will get us a vehicle that I don't know when labor pieces will come, but obviously we're gonna need to start thinking about the inventory of stuff that it's gonna take to run that. And with our carry forward, I think we're in the position to go ahead and buy our first vehicle to be used at the complex. So anyway, council, I'll keep you updated, give you real information as it comes. But again, I'm excited because we've got these committees engaged, and it's kind of good now to make the calls and say, hey, guess what? You can finally start doing some of the design and development. We're ready to roll. So
At what point will there be a master plan developed?
So technically, we have a master plan, and correct me if I'm wrong. I felt I'd shared that here before. Of course, it's probably time to bring it back up.
That was just tentative, though, wasn't it?
Well, but so we know what we want in the park. The master plan's going to come with each one of these committees actually developing. So the layout you have is everything that we want in the park, and that's been input from the community. Now what it is letting these individual committees do the design work, just like the baseball and softball. The way I've laid it out is not the way it will be done. The soccer won't be done.
That's what I mean. I mean, how does a committee determine, I mean, how do we fit this whole property, you know, with the fields and everything else? I mean, the committee, individual committees can't do that.
So what we want is done, and what their committees are going to do, they're going to work right with the engineer. I mean, it's going to be a work in progress. I mean, the only way that you could do it any different is if we took it ourselves and said, okay, we want this to be here for sure. We want this to be here for sure. And a lot of that is going to, a lot of that needs to come with when you get with these committees on exactly what they think we need. For example, if you look at the soccer complex, we've laid the soccer complex out without doing any homework. We don't know, do they need that much ground? Are they going to put that many fields in? What's the right number of fields? What do they need to be? Big fields, small fields? And so none of that homework's been done. So tentatively the areas are identified that these things will go in, that the different complexes will go in. But to say here that this is exactly what it's going to take, we don't know that, because the committees are going to have to go out and figure out exactly what they want their piece of this puzzle to look like. I don't know if I'm helping you, Jim.
Well, we've got so much property, and what are we going, how's this, I'm not asking specifically where everything is. But, if you say, well, there's 3 fields or 4 fields or 6 fields, or, I mean, depending on whether it may be soccer or baseball, softball, I mean, how is that going to be determined?
By the committees that go do their homework, by going to these established parks that are out there?
Well, I understand that, but we've also said that, shoot for the moon and let's have the biggest and best, but at some point you can't have everything. It doesn't make sense for the size property we have. And so how do we come together on a final plan as far as where how many fields and so forth? You understand what I mean? Do we have enough room to do what we want to do? That's the question.
Yeah, so I think you're bringing up so again, I still say it goes back to these committees, because I laid out the soccer, I laid out the baseball, because we knew we wanted baseball and soccer. I told them, do this, do this, do this, okay? I think the committees are going to have to go do their homework, and then I do think a real piece will come in. For example, when they put Shawnee together and they put Bridgeport together, they're going to do it exactly the way they are. They knew what the finish line was, they figured out how they could get there. And so even when we do the soccer complex, we may not have AstroTurf on every single field. It just depends. If they come back and say we only need 3 fields because you can cut them and do this way and this way and this way, then it's a chance we can. I think it all comes down to what they come back and say. And then the other thing too that I think is going to be a real hit is what will we be able to borrow? And then something else too, I really feel confident in. I feel super confident in, we are going to get some grant money. It's just a matter of where we are in the process. And then let me tell you, the meeting that Michael and I attended last week, we came away with our trails, and there were comments made regularly after that meeting and phone calls that I took that said Summersville's ready to go. There's a lot of things we got going for us. Number one, we own the property outright. We don't have any debt on the property. We paid $1 million for it. And then not only that, we got $600,000 in the budget. Most cities or most people building trails, the monies they're asking for, we're going to be able to go ahead and do the design. We're going to be able to engage these committees and get some of this work done. I think your questions are very valid, Jim, but again, I think, you know, if we try to narrow it down any more before we engage the committees, then we're going to be designing the park, and that's not what we want. We want these committees to design. And I think, and I'm saying that I think we got to take it at a pace that we don't build a second-class facility.
I agree.
Yeah, and so it, you know, it may be longer before we get these other pieces added, but we're going to start with the trails, the trailhead, and all the trails, and then the next piece, because we don't have a home for our soccer kids, is that soccer complex. And
I was down at Shawnee Saturday. My grandson's playing soccer, or one grandson, and it's a tremendous facility. And I mean, the parking that's required, and they said they didn't do enough parking, is tremendous. And I'm just trying to say, can we do this, or can we fit everything in that property up there?
Yeah.
And there has to be some process to say, you know, there can be this many, these kind of fields, this many.
And this much parking and.
Yeah, the whole thing's kind of got, it can't be just individual committees.
Well, but
It's gotta be
that's
coming
up,
together.
when the committee goes to the engineer and say, okay, this is what we want.
Yeah.
Then it's up to the engineers to say, okay, here's the amount of acreage you have, here's the terrain, we can put A, B, C, but we can't put D.
yeah.
They'll spec it.
And I think too that like what you're saying is very valid, but I think again that's going to come with what the directions the committees take us, because the other thing of it is too, if you look at that layout right now, I don't really like that layout.
I don't either.
Yeah.
And that was very tentative.
But that was just, we just threw it together. But the other thing of it is, I think too, that maybe some work can be done, like to bring the soccer and the baseball closer so they can use the same parking. You know, yeah. Right now, the way we have them, it's kind of, they're separate, and they've got their own parking lots. So I think a lot of this will evolve through. And then ultimately, we've hired Thrasher to do a job. And that's to help us get to the finish line with the design of this park. And they already know we want all those pieces in it. And so when they sit down with these committees and start doing this work, they're, you know, I'm sure there's going to be times that we're going to have to say, you know, and the other thing too is I think that we have to be real about the type of tournaments and stuff, the numbers that we want to drive here. Sure. You know, I was at Shawnee when I took a tour with their people. I mean, I was actually up there for a tour, and it was interesting some of the stuff that they were telling me they made a mistake on. And that's why I want our people to go there and find out. Even like with Bridgeport, same thing. There's, you know, they'll tell you, we made a mistake on this. Down at Shawnee, there was a big mistake with the lighting. And they said, listen, we made this mistake with the lighting. Now, I didn't really get into it because I'm like, okay, the committee will come here and find this out. Hopefully, you know, with all the resources and the access that we have to these facilities. And I'm saying if somebody's got a hot facility that we need to visit out of state, let's go. If some other neighboring states figured something out, let's send these committees and go. But that's what that $600,000 is going to do in the bank. It's going to start doing the design of the trails and the soccer complex, and then it's going to take care of these committees so that they have what they need to do the work that we're asking them to do.
Somehow, I think still that it's got to come together. You know, we have one space. For example, in our committee we said, or some of the folks said, well, you know, it'd be great if you had 4 big fields, clover leaves.
Yeah.
So you could use them for smaller, for Little League, and younger kids and also the high school age kids and older. But you know how much space that takes to do that. That takes a tremendous amount of space between a senior league field, or, you know, a big field and a small field. So
So
The
Jim,
question-
actually, the engineer said, if you look at the way we have it designed now, if we, okay, so they did that because that was the plot of the land. That was the way the land, that's why it's that way. That's why it's not cloverleaf now. Actually, the engineer said it would take less space than the space we're taking up right now, the way those fields are laid out. Because they're not laid out, I mean, you know, it's awful how they're laid
It's a
out.
hodgepodge.
And the reason they did that is they laid it in there on the topo. They could lay those fields in there like that without doing a lot of earth movement. Now, if we want to do it right and spend money, you bring them together and do a cloverleaf. I mean, I think from a standpoint, if I can recall, when they did that, that's the only reason we laid it that way, because you won't have to, you know, in their mind, there was a lot of money moving earth. Well, if we get the National Guard to move the earth, it's not gonna, you know, we're not gonna have sometimes. And I'm not saying either, I want to be clear, that I feel quite sure that we'll need some private, that we'll be hiring some private contractors for work up there too. It won't all be done, because when you get to some of the tedious finish work of that type of stuff, it's not going to be the National Guard that's going to do it. It's going to be a private company come in.
yeah, I'd like to see a master plan design before you know, put soccer in there, you know, like the soccer, baseball, and the parking. I mean, the trails may be another issue because of where they are. But the other space, I think, you know, we've got to make some decisions about what we're going to try to put in there.
Yeah, so maybe you could come and talk to me, because I'm still not, I'm not connected where you're saying a master plan design, because we kind of got a layout, we got a master plan, but it's not, nothing's definite, because that's all been done by, you know, the 1,000-foot level, because we don't really know. I mean, I think if you're going to do a master plan, you got to know how many ball fields, how many this, how many that, and we don't know that. And it's going to evolve over time.
Yeah, we've
Yeah.
got to get with Thrasher.
Yeah, yeah. And the committees are going to have access to them. I mean, Thrasher's going to be, I mean,
I understand.
the trails, I mean, they'll be right there at every meeting. I mean, we just got to schedule these things so they can keep up. But I think the way we're going to phase it in, it's going to be a pretty simple task for Thrasher, because here initially, it's just going to be the trails and the soccer complex that they'll be working on. Then we got to keep everybody else motivated that your time's coming.
Well,
Yeah.
we can talk about that.
Okay.
I'm just trying to kind of figure out how this is going to work, you know. I just want to see a planned approach to it with parking and all the other needs other than soccer or the trails incorporated into this. Make sure.
See, now, you say that, there's a plan out there that's got all this in it, with parking and everything. I mean,
But
that,
it's not, but
well,
you-
it's not definite, because we don't know the volume of this stuff that we're gonna build. I mean, like I said, when I laid in, when me and the engineer laid in the soccer complex, if you go look at it, I don't even remember now off the cuff here, but I think there's 2 big fields and 3 little fields. That may not be what we end up with.
yeah.
It may be 1 big field and the rest are little fields.
Yeah, well, I think we have to, before you start moving dirt, it would seem like for the whole project, you'd have to have a plan for the whole project. You'd have to have some semblance of what you're gonna do.
Okay. Well, Jim, I would invite you to come to the next meeting with the engineers, and you can express your concerns, and which are valid, because I'm thinking what you're asking for, we do have, and we can't finite it anymore until we hear from the committees what we need to finite. And again, we'll just, it's a work in progress. We'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Okay? Thanks, Joe. Okay, so the next thing I want to do is I want to tell you all about a grand reopening you're invited to. Please mark your calendars and attend if you can. Save a Lot is having a re-grand opening. It's on September 6th at 10 a.m. And they have made several calls to me making sure that we know they're doing this, and they would love to see us at that. It's 9/6, September 6th at 10 a.m. And they're going to be, they're doing a whole, they got food vendors and all kinds of stuff coming. They're gonna have a pretty neat deal that day. Actually, council, the other thing I want to talk to you about is, it's that time of year again, it's getting pretty exciting about the 53rd Annual Nicholas County Potato Festival. I want to remind everybody that the kickoff to the Potato Festival started last year, so this is the second year doing it. It's Taste of Nicholas County. If you didn't make it out there last year, I encourage you to come this year because it was a great time, and it's a good kickoff for the Potato Festival. But on Thursday, September 7th, from 4:30 to 8:30, you can come to Kirkwood Winery, and it's called A Taste of Nicholas County. And that's where restaurants and caterers and different folks bring their food out there. You buy sampling tickets for $1 and you actually get a vote. It's a tasting contest where you get a vote on who's the best. There's actually a winner of it. You also have the opportunity for free beverage tasting from Kirkwood Winery, and there's also going to be live local entertainment. So this is Thursday, September 7th, 4:30 to 8:30. And then, of course, the next day, in a big, exciting way, the 53rd Annual Potato Festival kicks off right here, downtown Summersville, at the Pavilion at 5:30, opening ceremonies. We're excited about our Grand Marshal this year, Nora Ramsey, and we're as excited for her to be our Grand Marshal as she is to be the Grand Marshal. Nora is absolutely elated. As a matter of fact, you talk about families and family reunions. I think that we've got the biggest request we've ever had for chairs set out for the parade reviewing booth of the Grand Marshal, with her and her family coming in. So I know Nora's really excited, and let me tell you, she was absolutely off her rocker when I called and told her that she had been picked as this year's Grand Marshal. So the whole array, the whole weekend, the Grand Parade on Saturday, and then, I mean, everything. There's a few new added things this year. I encourage everybody to come out for a great weekend. It's all highlighted by Saturday night entertainment, which is exciting. We got Mitch Rossell. And listen, if you don't know that young man, I encourage you to go out and YouTube him. He wrote a song that he sang on America's Got Talent, and it's an incredible song. And he'll be on at 7 o'clock right here, downtown Summersville. And then, of course, at 8, so he was on America's Got Talent. And then, what's the other one? American Idol runner-up. We've got this year Hunter Girl, and she goes on at 8:30. And then, of course, the evening's all capped off with fireworks. It's going to be another great festival. I want to take this opportunity to thank the committees. We've got another super good committee. Lots of folks involved in this. Every little aspect of this is broken out into another committee or a little committee. So I want to thank, of course, Mary Ann's the chairperson. But this is a successful show because of all the people that get involved and the work being done in the committee. So I want to thank anybody that's had anything to do with this year's Potato Festival. Council, you got before you today a letter that I actually sent off to the director of the DNR asking to make the annual payment that the Summersville Hydro plant makes to the DNR a fixed payment. We've had many years of discussion over this, and Director McMillian, Brett, finally told me send him a letter. He's basically given me a verbal commitment that we will cap this payment next year at $115,000 annually. So this year's payment's actually going out $112,280, and that represents a CPI for this year. Next year's payment going forward will be $115,000. So I included that as this is an important piece of finances, money that we pay out of the hydro. Just so you all know, this is a contractual arrangement because the gross revenues are handled by the contractor. This is a payment that they make, and of course, as soon as we take back over the full operations of the plant, this is a payment that the city of Summersville will make, and it's actually made on behalf of the city of Summersville. So that's why the letter is from me. Visitor Center partnership with the state, the city, and I'm still trying to find out the details of the county. Actually, the state was wanting to have a meeting this coming Friday. I was not available. I'll be out of town. So in another exciting way, I'm looking to sit down with them and start talking about the details of our joint visitor center. And it's pretty exciting. I tell you what, I've gotten some more information about the park. It's going to truly be, if you think about what we have going on now here in the city of Summersville, State Park and our own city park bookends both ends of the city. And the things that they're gonna do in this state park, unreal. What they're gonna bring to the area from a recreational standpoint. And by the way, just so you know, they're also building a 10-acre lake inside that park. So it's gonna have its own water, its own 10-acre lake. It's incredible. So when you really get down to seeing what they're gonna do and how they're gonna build that out, what a tremendous asset it's gonna be to us. And you know, just real quick, I'll highlight, Chuck rode with me. Him and Rodney actually rode down with me today. I had an invite to come down and be, it was a photo op with Joe Manchin. He just gave us again in earmarks this year another $1.8 million. We went down for that photo op today. And when you sit and listen to what's going on in the region, you know, we got to listen to the park superintendent of the New River Gorge National Park talk about the uptick and the volume that they've seen and just the connectivity and everything that's going on in the region. Then you talk about our trails and the work we're going to do not only with the Pioneer Trail system that takes us the other way and out that way, but also the meeting that Michael and I have next week about the trail system that's going to connect us into the Fayetteville, Raleigh County and that area. Just a lot of great things going on, and this visitor center is going to be remarkable. And more details to come. We still got to sit down and contractually blister some things out, but there's a lot of exciting things coming with the visitor center. I want to remind everybody that the hydro flushing is taking place in the city of Summersville. It runs through September 11th, weather permitting. We ask everybody again to use extreme caution when cooking or doing laundry. There's nothing wrong with the water, but if it's discolored, obviously what you want to do is run your faucet a little while to get rid of the discolor. It's not dangerous, but what we worry about is we don't want to stain your clothes. The other thing I want to highlight with you real quick is tomorrow myself and James Corbett have a meeting in Lewisburg with the new District 9 engineer, basically the district that's over roads and projects in our area. Jim Moore. Jim was recently appointed to that position probably, I want to say 6, maybe 8 months ago. We're actually making a visit over there to talk about a lot of things. One thing that we are going to talk about are the issues that we have in our city relative to state DOH, the Department of Highways, but not only that, we're also going to highlight in a big way the approval of our sidewalk project goes back to the district. And a matter of fact, we've got a bunch of documents. I've got a pile of them right here that are sitting in the district's hands right now on the approval. But I wanted to tell you that tomorrow I will inform them that we are going to move forward with the first phase of our sidewalk project. We got a grant 2 years ago for $450,000. Sometime back, and of that, it's an 80-20 grant, so our match is $90,000, so we've already budgeted that $90,000. Then sometime back when we thought we could do the whole sidewalk, like I told you before, to the driveway there of the old Tully house, sometime back they came back and told me that we were going to need another $88,500 to get there. Now that project's up to $700 and some thousand. It's unreal, even higher than that. But we added the $88,500 some time back. So they're going to get word tomorrow that we're ready to move forward with the first piece of that sidewalk. And what we have in the budget to do so is the $450 plus the $88,500 that we added some time ago. So they're going to get the green light tomorrow on building a sidewalk, going to bid as soon as possible for $538,500. And those are the monies that we have both in grant and in our current budget to build that sidewalk on Webster Road. Finally, what I want to tell you about council is we have a committee, the Old Main Gym Floor Committee. We've met several times. We are getting close to the finish line of that. You did put in the budget this year $225,000 to replace the Old Main Gym Floor. I'm happy to tell you that our bids have come back. We thought at one point in time we were going to go with a synthetic type floor, more of a rubber floor. We have changed course because when the bids come back, that was more than the wood floor. So now we're going to go with the wood floor. So the committee is actually reviewing the contract. I've already gotten some positive feedback from committee members. And in this last carry forward, we'll add the additional, the final bid came in for the wood floor of Old Main $244,730 is what we're paying to replace that floor. Imagine years ago when we thought we could do it for $100,000. But anyway, all the pieces are in place for the total removal of the current floor, leveling, and then putting the new floor in. The Board of Education gave the committee the green light this week that they will take the Old Main Gym out of commission in 2024 in the entire months of April and May. The floor will be replaced. So we will sign the contract. One thing that I did change on the contract, it was a 50-40-10, meaning that they wanted us to pay 50 down, pay 40 when the materials arrived, and then 10 was our holdback until the job was completed. I did have conversation with them today and said I wanted a 40-40-10 or 40-40-20. So we'll pay 40 down, which is just shy of $100,000. When the actual material shows up on site, we'll pay the other 40%, and our holdback on the project till completion will be 20% of the total project amount. Yeah. So anyway, that concludes the mayor's report, unless anybody has any questions about anything that I addressed. Nope. Nope. Everybody good? Okay, how about council reports? Okay, with no council reports, we don't need an executive session tonight. So therefore, I would move to adjourn, or ask for a move to adjourn. We have a first and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Thank you, council. Have a good evening.